Coach, you and I talked a little bit last week. It was one of those games, and you and I maybe just talked a little bit ago about the feeling you have going into football games. Sometimes an instinct you have that it may not be quite your night. Talk about going into that game and what you were thinking at the time.
Well, I was thinking that I knew we were playing a good team, and I knew that they had a good defense. And on the road, that usually makes for a tough go of it. Union City's a hard place to play at, but we have no excuses. They beat us. It was a defensive struggle. Neither team had 200 yards total offense, so both sides' defense was doing the job, and it was just tough going. And those kind of games pivot on key moments, and somebody always wins and somebody always loses, and that night we lost.
When you speak of key pivotal moments, what were a couple of those that may have cost you on Friday?
Oh, I think we could have probably tackled a little better at some moments, particularly in overtime. But what people don't realize is that, both teams are doing their best to do the opposite. So, it wasn't like Union City wasn't trying to not be tackled. They did a good job. Full credit to them. They throttled us, and we had some moments, but overall we needed to have more moments, and we just didn't have enough. But that happens, and it's why this game is the best game there is out there. I think it just really tests your mettle, and it really teaches kids that life is not always going to go the way that they want it to, and it's how they bounce back. So we're trying to bounce back right now.
Right, talk about that bouncing back this week, and again, we're early in the week as this interview goes, and just a little bit about the kids' mentality right now as you get ready for this Friday.
Yeah, I think that the loss still stings. I think that it's up to us as a coaching staff to get them to pay attention to this week and a formidable opponent. And if they, we'll tell them tonight, if you don't, if tonight is lethargic, you're going to pay for it on Friday night. You've got to snap out of it. We got to snap out of it. Everybody's got to snap out of it. And I think this group will. They're a good group.
Well, speaking of Friday, everybody's again bunched up there at the top now. We got several teams that are still vying for a championship, and you're one of them, and Centerville's one of them as well. They love to run the football. They've done that over the last couple of weeks. They just seem to be starting to pick up a little bit of steam. What do you expect Friday?
Well, Centerville is extremely well coached. They've got great athletes. They don't give up. They play hard from the beginning to the end. It's very evident on film. It's going to be a battle. We've got a small advantage in that word home, but that's just a small advantage. I think the odds makers would say that's worth a couple points, but it doesn't always work out that way. And I know I watch Radio Troy. I listen to those interviews, and I hear Coach Padgett, and he's happy for a reason. He played well last week. You got two teams coming in, though, that have got to try to forget last week in both cases and concentrate on this week.
So you're the one watching Radio Troy.
I am the one. When you see the like at the bottom, that's me.
They said, and speaking of Centerville, they did something which I found interesting. Coach kind of felt that they were not getting out in games very well. They were kind of dragging physically and mentally, and he said, you know what, I'm going to change it up. We're going to have a little bit of fun. And he did that in practice, and it seems like it has worked over the last couple of weeks. Talk a little bit about that, and as a coach, sometimes you just got to make those kind of moves.
Yeah, we did that a couple weeks ago where we knew that, it's kind of the middle of the season, and legs get tired and aches start to stay persistent, and so we kind of backed off a couple weeks ago. This weather is not helping when it's 90 degrees out and you're trying to get things done. It's tough. It's tough, but I agree with that philosophy. I think you got to make things fun, or you're going to lose them.
Exactly. All right, stopping the running attack, which is never easy, and as well as they're running the football, how do you at least slow them down? And at the same time, they got to find a way to slow down your offense.
Well, I've got a great defensive coordinator who really studies the film, and I know he has a game plan in place that if executed, should be okay for us. But they've got some unbelievable running backs. Their line is getting the job done. We've got our work cut out for us, and we have to tackle better. We did not tackle well last week. I suspect that behind me they're going to be doing some tackling drills here in a few minutes, which I would highly encourage them to participate in. It sounds like I'm making a joke, but week to week there's always things you can work on, and we know we can tackle. We just had we had a bad week last week.
How would you highly encourage them to do so? If you could maybe enlighten us on that one.
Well, I would just encourage all athletes out there in the listening area to always, listen to their coaches. But no, it really, I know people say this a lot, but it really does boil down to tackling and blocking and not turning the ball over. But you know what? I hope I'm not coming across as gloom and doom on this interview, because I'm not. I'm very, very excited about the remainder of the season, and an old guy named Lou Holtz once said you're going to have 3 crises every season, and how you handle those is going to decide how the season goes. So we'll count last week as a crisis, because we certainly were disappointed in the outcome.
Hey, before I let you go, though, isn't it kind of fun, though? And listen, I'm sure you'd like to run away with a conference every year and be 7-0 and win championships. But in a lot of respects, isn't it kind of fun to know that we talked about this in the preseason? This is going to be wide open this year, and isn't it kind of fun to have all those guys up there and you all battling it out? Tell the truth.
I would prefer to be to be the one way out in front, but no, it is fun to compete. Games are fun when you know it's going to be a game, when you know you're going to be in the game. It makes for a more enjoyable evening. But I think if there's a coach out there that says he wouldn't like to just run away with it, he's lying to you. He's lying.